We're in Kyiv now, so if you're okay with that, I will be talking on a friendly basis with Mr. Chair. We will ask you a couple of questions and he answers, and then the audience will have a chance to ask 3 short questions, so that Paweł could give you concise answers, because we must finish this part by 10:30. Okay, so we know what's going on in our relationships. We know all those turbulences, and if we talk about Polish-Ukrainian relationship, how important it is in Poland. You, as a Polish politician, how could you explain to the representatives of Ukraine the current state of affairs, where we are now, where we're going to, and how they should perceive the actions of Poland? It's not hard to understand that, because in Poland we have the government today, which, and I know that for a fact, the government that supports the processes of the European integration of Ukraine. This is the area of our interest, and Poland is the only big country in Europe. I'm not talking about other smaller nations, geography-wise. Certainly, many of them have frank emotions, but Poland is not putting any obstacles on the way of Ukrainian European integration. If someone in the West says that, yes, they are welcoming the expansion of EU, but sometimes people then later say other things. Second point, the Polish Prime Minister is the only Prime Minister in the history called Ukraine, mentioned Ukraine in his speech, because he and he did it 35 times when he took this office. There has not been any other Prime Minister in Poland who would have said so much about Ukraine so often. The first visit of Donald Tusk was to Ukraine, and this was a clear signal that gave a new push to the Polish-Ukrainian relationships. And we see that this line remains. On the 28th, there's going to be another meeting, not a routine one. This meeting will help to change fast the relationship between Poland and Ukraine. We have lost the emotional moment. We should have brought that to the legal area, legal domain, and we should have done that, and it is still possible. The decisions on the lower level, like sectoral agreements that suggest mutual guarantees, this is something that we need. I don't love emotional statements. In those discussions, I always try to take the side of Mr. Kisielczyk. I try always not to let those conflicts go beyond certain borders. I don't want even to mention about the emotions that are there on Facebook or Twitter. What we see today, those events, they are very much important, they are essential, and I believe we can address all these problems. We need to do a lot for that, but I want to make this point clear in Ukraine. We have introduced a blockade on roads and critical infrastructure. We introduced the border crossing points for infrastructural facilities, objects. We want to help the producers who are losing as a result of opening of the European market for Ukraine. If you grow wheat or do animal husbandry, you need to change to the scope of your production, and we help those producers because there are ways to help these people. This is not the first time that's happening if you talk about the EU.
Of course, Brussels is very well aware of the actions that it should take, but it's a lengthy process, of course. There is a big number of trucks queuing at the border, but still, this is not the reason for terminating Ukrainian-Polish relations. It's a kind of a negative element, but here we should perceive it rather in an emotional context. For instance, 2 years ago, the Polish said we were ready for accepting Ukraine in the EU, and now many Polish people say that unfortunately they are not ready any longer, but we have to give a clear signal. This is not appropriate policy. Everyone is ready to fight in Twitter, both parties, I mean. Yet we know that the Western decision makers discuss very important decisions on weapons supply to Ukraine. So we should not dramatize what's going on at the border. I'm deeply convinced that we will resolve this problem. Afterwards, perhaps the agricultural manufacturers will face other challenges with other agricultural goods like tomatoes or cabbage. In France, for instance, farmers throw away other types of products. Farmers continuously resort to such methods because agricultural producers are usually overregulated and they require serious protection from their authorities. I'm sure that the Ukrainians should use the opportunity of and benefit from Polish openness. Poland is eager to see Ukraine EU member, and we negotiate all these challenges with our farmers. We would like to avoid the problems, but of course the problems are always inevitable. They exist everywhere, but they are not the reason to nullify our friendship. We just should act cold-handed. We have lots of discussions in Ukraine and Poland, initiated by both parties. We should agree that the problems are important and the discussion should go on. Yet the war is raging on our continent, and these problems may leave Ukrainian area and come to us. The problem is that we perhaps cannot impact the public opinion, or the problem is due to the fact that we have to ensure proper communication. It is always easy to say that communication is poor communication is the main reason for someone's argument. Usually it's the case when the spouses have an argument, but we're talking about Polish-Ukrainian relations. People who I know demonstrate quite a calm reaction to the situation. But of course, the situation at the border is more problematic. It takes too long to make decisions in Brussels and Kyiv. Traveling is a prolonged process. But what can I say? We should be realistic. I always tell Polish colleagues, look, it's true. that wheat and corn farmers suffer losses, but Europe has an experience in addressing these problems. Of course, there will be always buyers for this wheat, and the problems will be resolved at some point of time, because it is in no one's interest to see farmers protesting at the border. The Minister of Agriculture of Ukraine has a very active standpoint, and he is not nervous. He's not disturbed by this situation. I'm sure that we will solve the problem somehow. We should not be too negative, and that's what I tell my Polish colleagues. Look at the scale of Ukrainian exports. Ukrainian exports amount to 1 billion euros. These are goods bought from Ukraine. The farmers that produce wheat or dairy products are right to some extent, and the government realizes that, and all the problems cannot be solved overnight, of course. We should look at the picture from a helicopter perspective. The problem should be addressed at large, but of course we should keep in mind that our cooperation is a strategic benefit. The European Union has not a single example of a country that is involved in European integration and a war at the same time. The benefits are incomparable to the benefits brought about by other countries. It is important, of course, to implement some investment programs for Ukraine, but immediately after Ukraine becomes a member to the EU, Poland can use the benefits of Ukrainian markets. So it's the opportunity for other countries that are not members of the EU economic zone. As a politologist, as an expert in political sciences, I can say this for sure. It's difficult from the political point of view, but the main thing is to identify the scale of the situation as accurately as possible. For instance, the Polish-Ukrainian relations are characterized by mainly positive elements and manifestations. So there are, of course, some sectors like agriculture subject to certain problems, but they can be supported by some other means, and that's the way we would like to pursue. I think that some Spanish and French politicians are not supporting the expansion negotiations. They always come up with some additional requirements and conditions, but the Polish government is absolutely open and ready to accept EU expansion, because it's in our interest as well. Thank you very much. I think now it's time to comment on what you have said. So we've got 25 minutes, and dear participants, you may ask 3 questions. Please be brief and concise. Ukrainian colleagues are especially welcome to participate in discussion. And please pass the mic. MP of Ukraine, Volodymyr, Ukrainian solidarity. We are talking about very rational things. For both Poland and Ukraine, recent events have demonstrated that the main turbulence is observed in the emotional dimension. Polish segment of social networks started disseminating videos with anti-Ukrainian moods, and the same is true for the Ukrainian sector of social networks. But the source of these videos is very well known to everyone. Moscow would like to add some fuel to the fire. And I have a question, whether the Polish government is ready. Both countries should stay together, should work hand in hand, should make real steps towards counteracting Russian propaganda, which is observed in various levels. So the communication should work not only at the national segment, but there should be counteraction to emotions. Yes, we are aware of Russian propaganda, yet everyone should be guided by his or her own considerations. People know me, people listen to me, and yes, there is Russian propaganda, but there are also many problems in our context. Russian propaganda should not be the only demonized factor. We know what's going on the Polish-Ukrainian border, and we would like to avoid these problems. Personally, I originate from the village next to the Carpathian Mountains. I know that it's very difficult to live difficult to survive if you cannot sell your grain, your wheat. But I also agree that Russian propaganda affects all of us. I'm urging you, please differentiate between propaganda and real situations. You should not mix it up together. Those who write the publications in our media are my friends. I know why they are writing this. But if you have emotions, if you are overwhelmed by emotions, please do not write the publications. Go and play football. For instance, I'm a big friend of Andrei Sadovey, but I always tell him, wait for 2 days. We will meet and we will discuss everything, and we will then act in the same direction. Hello, my name is Dmitrovich. I'm the MP of Ukraine. The problem is that Russian agricultural products are found in Poland. Is the government going to do something against Russian products in the territory of Poland? They are there through Belarus. A very good question from Vladimir. We have already come up with such an initiative, yet the facts are important. Evidence it's important. Before arriving in Ukraine, I checked some factual information. I watched the conference with the agricultural producers, and as far as I know, very small amounts of grain arrives in Poland from Russia. Of course, there is such a problem. There is Russian or Belarusian wheat. It comes to Poland, perhaps. I know about 10,000 tons. That's a very small amount. However, there are general problems in the European markets. If you're interested in this problem, I can tell you that today we do not have. We face the systemic challenges. Agricultural producers protest against the decisions of the European Commission. It's not aimed at Ukraine. I'm talking to Ukrainian to agricultural farmers. I ask them to understand that they are protesting against the European Commission. The problems with selling agricultural products persists everywhere. Since the yield is good, it becomes difficult to sell the crops. European crops are expensive, and it's difficult to sell them. If we're going to reduce the use of pesticides, then European farmers will face with the same problems as Ukrainian farmers do. And respectively, you as farmers won't like some guys in Brazil, for instance, to produce and sell at lower price. That's if you become the member to the EU. As regards destruction of Ukrainian grain by Polish farmers, I would say we will also counteract Russian grain entering Poland. I think that this is an exaggerated problem. It will be resolved, I'm sure. There is a group of Polish agricultural producers that has just a small share in the total production, but they really try to exaggerate the problems. We know that there used to be problems with farmers in the Netherlands. They solved the problems by processing some part of their grain. I'm sure that at some point of time, the structure of handling grains will change, like it was the case with the cheese and dairy products production. My name is Anatoly Kurnosov, and I represent the Center for Political Studies and Research. Doctrine is the name. Your Excellency, thank you very much for your efforts in the field of Polish-Ukrainian relations. A year ago, Biden visited Poland. He made a statement in Warsaw, and you gave an interview on the radio. You referred to the Polish agreement, Polish treaty. You mentioned it should be a kind of Elysee treaty, and it should envisage very close cooperation, especially in the field of safety and security. So a year has lapsed, and could you comment? Is the idea of this treaty still relevant, or it should be regarded solely in the context of the European integration of Ukraine? I think that European integration should be subject to close examination, and today Donald Tusk is willing to enhance G7 by Polish presence. We have discussed this in Kyiv as well, and there is an idea of signing defense agreements like Ukraine has concluded with Great Britain. But Polish-Ukrainian agreement or treaty should be much broader. I'm not sure if this is the end of story or not, but we still have some time.
I'm a journalist from Prof, Ukraine. Our readers just recently have been worried with the statement of Mr. Tusk, where he implied that the border between our countries can be fully blocked, at least for some time. My question is, what is the root of the statement? How should we understand it? And if Poland indeed is prepared to take this step? Well, Another friend of mine has already spoken about that, Taras Kachka. He said the interpretation of Donald Tusk was perceived in a wrong way. He said already now that it was perceived a way to in a way to different way. So what Donald Tusk said and what Mr. Kachka said, that we need to take into account the commas in this statement. And now Mr. Kachka has to explain what Mr. Tusk said. One of Ukrainian politicians said when I was coming to Ukraine, he told me, well, why are you coming to Ukraine now? In the context of the statement. But Mr. Tusk said to the Polish producers, and he said that he is the Prime Minister of Poland, he is the head of the government, and there are different views in the government, and everything needs to be taken into account. There is a position of producers, for once, but there is also a position of exporters, and he meant that and Mr. Kachka understood what he meant, but over the past 2 weeks, this has been a big trouble for us, for me particularly. We understand, yes, that there is election coming and so on, but this is not a strategic problem that we are talking about. This is not not a reason to announce a Polish-Ukrainian war now. As a moderator, I can also say that sometimes we comment on comments, and we have to. We need to be able to analyze them before we're making conclusions. Just another moment before you ask another question. I'm taking every step I need to take. Every day I give interviews on Polish-Ukrainian relationships. I even was on a cooking show once, and I'm thankful to Espresso TV channel that every week they videotape the interviews, and I explain Ukrainian-Polish relationship there. I understand what you mean. Understand what you say, that everything on the border between Poland and Ukraine doesn't matter much, that Poland is supporting Ukrainian integration. Can you please explain how it is, is it connected with the fact that you say that the Polish people who were initially in favor of Ukrainian annexation to EU, now they're against the Ukrainian accession to the EU. The government of Poland today, just like the past government, says and shows that when the people like something, even if it is to the detriment of government, the government agrees with the people. The government doesn't block the borders, the government doesn't do anything that was going on the border with Belarus. Yes, because there is a huge support to the farmers or shipment companies. But now we see that there is a position that Ukraine should not be part of the EU. The position is now gaining more momentum. So will the government eventually support that point? Well, we agreed that we will have an interview with Ukrainska Pravda. I hope that this interview will be published very soon. I don't agree with your diagnosis. It's not strange that the government is trying to help its farmers, but it is not connected with the general approaches towards the European integration processes in Ukraine. If someone provides fast, cheap advice, he or she should not having some kind of hidden negotiations with the EU. No, this is not happening. There are some matters that are within the sole competence of certain commissions. Yes, that's right. But I can tell you that we made the mistakes initially that we had made, and I want Ukraine to avoid these mistakes. in the process of integration. Every time for any country, it is so painful when there are matters related to their interests, the interests of the countries when they try to join the EU. You just can go to Brussels or Luxembourg or other HQs, but you don't always know the emotions that are associated, because every of the 27 nations of the EU in the process of negotiations will not be just talking with you in the context of we are having the war here, please give us some concessions. No, there will be a lot of discussions about the ammunition, the military support, of course, but these type of negotiations that I'm having, if I go to the UK, I tell them that if you don't provide the weapons right now, you're gonna have that kind of situation in your country next year. But if we talk about the European integration, the negotiations should be done in a really classic way. So you need to be able to build your own relationship with each of the 27 countries. I am saying that in really frank way. The EU is a specific mechanism where you need to be able to talk to all countries, all big nations, all big countries will pursue their own national interest when they carry out negotiations. But and they will require changes. The changes in Ukraine are not possible because of the war, which means that every country would need to ratify your agreements on cooperation and agreements, bilateral agreements with Ukraine. You will have to go this way 27 times. So if Ukrainians want to see who is the real friend, then they will need to do it, to complete this process. But the Poland agrees with the enhancement of EU and to admit Ukraine to EU, and Poland is the biggest country who is in favor of the Ukrainian membership. I'm not talking about other big countries here, but Poland is not prepared to lose its interest in European institutions. This is the key indicator. From the point of view of a Polish farmer, for him or her, the expansion of EU is just an opportunity to get some new benefits. So if you look from the perspective of Polish farmer, this is a chance for them to get some preferences, benefits. And this is my perspective on the expansion from the EU, and I disagree with the position that was published in the Polish media. I think this was a mistake, because nothing has changed on the highest level. Poland is interested in enhancement of the EU, and Polish elites will continue going towards the expansion of the EU. I think we just need to lose our emotions and start substantial discussions. I am in favor of fast expansion, and I believe we just need to dig deep into this topic as soon as possible. There are going to be a lot of challenges on the way of discussions. There always are. And we should not treat this process as if we are going to go and have a war every single day during the process of negotiations. Thank you for this chance to ask you a question. I'm an MP in Ukraine. What is our view? We think it was a pre-planned campaign. First was transporting companies, and now farmers. Today is wheat, tomorrow is corn, and we see that this meek reaction of the Polish government puts Ukraine in position of a hostage. So we understand that all the problems are going to be addressed in the context of the border between Poland and Ukraine, and that actions of the farmers will encourage new blockades, and we see that this kind of issue will remain for the next few years. But if you want to avoid protests of farmers and don't want any tomatoes or cabbage on the streets, you need to apply to the EU. I don't see any other way out. The issue of freedom and democracy is very much important in the terms of the solidarity, and you need to be really delicate when you address such problems, and our government has been really delicate about this matter as well. To address any problem, to this problem, they added the border to the list of critical infrastructure. And if we talk about the protest rallies of the farmers, and if you dislike them, then you need to apply to the EU, because the protests of farmers in the EU happen every day. I think you know about that. This is just a routine thing. I understand you are worried, but Poland is not going to change it, because this is a political culture in the EU in general. Everything related to the agriculture, at least, because the agriculture is subsidized. There are clear regulatory mechanisms. Really complicated area that's heavily regulated. For you to understand, I'll put it the other way. I think that Poland and Ukraine have a few people who are being really emotional about problems. There have been so many articles about that published. But if we are cold-minded when we analyze this problem, we'll see that it's very much similar to the problems that are faced by other countries like Poland or Germany. When I analyze my words, I can affirm, yes, that this is something really routine. It's nothing, no biggie here, no something extraordinary. If farmers take to streets with protests. When you join the EU, when Ukraine joins the EU, your farmers will also protest a lot. Because if you're a member of the EU and someone brings some commodity in huge amounts and cheaper to your country, you will protest. This is the way it works in the EU. Also, we need to into account other elements here, like Russian propaganda and everything. Okay, just one more question, please. Thank you for your question. Happy to see you not in New York but in Kyiv now, because last time we met there. To build on the question from my colleague, you can hear the rational and cold-minded approach is the right thing to have, of course, but the political culture in our countries is very much similar, almost identical, and it won't let it happen, I believe. And I think that it's not only about the Polish interests and the Polish farmers blocking the border, and the interests are competing with the Ukrainian interests, and it's going to continue over the next few years, and it will cover not only agriculture but the other economic aspects, because the structure of our economies is similar. But I believe there is another dimension. If from the Polish government, Polish politicians, if they at least said that this blockade of the border is bad, is detrimental, and we support Ukraine. So what I mean is, if we had seen the reaction of Polish government like a political signal that would indicate we are against this blockade, it would have been better. And this is a problem, I think, because the Ukrainian audience didn't hear that. But if you are the prime minister, I don't think you would have said that you are against the blockade of your own farmers. I think that the problem is there, but still, like, let's take, I've got, for example, you, Vladimir, someone from the Ukraine's Pravda and so on, and you are opinion makers. Let's get together for once and read what Donald Tusk said and comment on that. Right now in this room we have 10% of people who are opinion makers in Ukraine. In fact, I think that we need to say that people need to be able to analyze the sources of information. Like, if there is only one poster saying that Putin come and put everything into order, nothing, I mean, would happen. But because this poster doesn't mean anything, it could have been just a provocation or some just sicko. But if but still, we and you and me, we understand that this poster doesn't mean that there is a change in the situation in Ukraine. It's just one single poster. If a Ukrainian does something bad and just makes a video about that, doesn't mean, but it doesn't indicate that there was a change in policy. The public discussions, social discussions, yeah, sometimes take into account this, but we need to take into account the whole situation. I always tell the Western partners that they must continue providing the weapons to Ukraine, and Donald Tusk from morning till the evening works, and he understands that he is being regarded as an enemy of Ukraine. And he's not motivated with that kind of statements, of course. So if you want him to help you, you need to help him. So you need to be able to build positive spirit, positive mood. I am not in favor of blockade. I don't want them to happen, but I'm a Polish politician. I was elected in voivodeship in Poland. I will not be against the Polish farmers. What I would do, I would look for the way out from this controversial situation. Thank you, Paweł, for the participation of our discussion.